Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, you guys know what time it is. It's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, and came through my feed. See, people always say, Jason, why do you always lie and say people awared you about a video? We know you stalk these other channels. Actually, not always. Usually 50% of these are actually sent to me by other people. Maybe about half of them I actually find on my own. This one I found on my own. No one linked it to me. But apparently Vince over at V-Shred, aka V-Shrunk, has made a video giving you guys the top 5 tips for gaining muscle. It was for beginners and people who don't have a lot of experience, which is kind of funny. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Now, people might say, Jason, why is it funny? Because a lot of the advice in there doesn't apply to first-year lifters, and that's why it's kind of comical. And the thing is, Vince could actually make gains going back and doing a lot of novice stuff because, yeah, he's got decent biceps. He's got decent shoulders. The guy has no chest, no back, no legs, right? And I'm talking from a serious lifter perspective. People who are actually serious about their lifting, who actually get under a heavy barbell regularly, he could easily double his size. So people will also say, well, Jason, what do you mean? I think he looks good. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, man. If you think the guy looks good and that's the physique you want, and I'm not a physique guy, remember that, guys, I'm a strength athlete. But if that's the physique that you want, you don't need any sort of intensive lifting program. You probably don't even need to actually go to a gym because he's mostly bicep and delt. You could just do chin-ups, right? If you guys did some chin-ups, some curls, maybe a little bit of overhead pressing, right? Or you could even do some handstand push-ups. You don't even need a gym, and then to do a bunch of general physical preparedness, a lot of hit type cardio, a lot of sprinting, sled drags, again, GPP work, so that you burn through a lot of calories, watch your diet, you could have that physique. It doesn't require lifting. He's not actually big. Again, his biceps can be a little misleading because he does train his biceps. You can get that with chin-ups. So the point is, he gave some tips. And I'm going to kind of tear some of those apart because he doesn't apply them himself, and there's problems with it. But for those of you who are beginners, I have a free novice program. It's out. I have one of them that over 10,000 people have run. I don't charge for them. They're free, but I've got a new playlist. I'll try to remember to link it below. I've got a new playlist with a new version of it. You make all the gains that you need. Make all the gains that you need in your first year of lifting on that program. You don't need anything elaborate, and it's free. It's absolutely free. I don't charge for it because I'm a fitness slut. I give it away for free, baby. So back over to his tips. Well, one of the tips he was saying, well, you need to use good form. Well, question, I agree with that. You need to use good form, but why? What's the purpose of good form? Anyone know? It's so that you actually work the joint angles. Usually, a lot of times if you're swinging or cheating or doing certain things to cheat weight around, what are you usually doing? You're missing ranges of motion. You're turning exercises into partials. That's usually what people's bad form is if they're not just flopping around or bouncing a weight. But even then, isn't that the problem? Yeah, bouncing a weight off your chest on the bench press is dangerous, but you're also missing the bottom of the lift. You're doing cheat curls and you're not doing them correctly. A lot of times guys who cheat curl, they don't lock their elbows at the bottom and then they use momentum on top of it. Well, you're not working the lower part of the movement. So what happens? Less muscle fibers are recruited. It's not the fact that you're using momentum. If you're using momentum to move a heavier weight through the full range of motion, you're not usually actually losing any muscle fiber recruitment, right? Particularly if you still reach the same rate of perceived exertion. You actually aren't. The problem is that we are losing joint angles oftentimes. And when you're losing joint angles, you are losing muscle fiber recruitment. That's a problem if you're trying to get maximum exactitude. That is a problem. You're not going to reach your full potential. But Vince does partials, so I don't understand why he's saying this. On the most effective exercises, he will talk about strict form on stuff like curls. Again, probably why he only has biceps and literally nothing else. Talks about this on curls, but then when it comes to the big movements, he does half reps. He does half reps on the bench press, doesn't touch his chest. He doesn't come all the way down on chin-ups and pull-ups, right? And then he wonders why he has no chest, no back. Well, that's why. He does partials. So that's one of the things that really bothered me in the video. I'm not saying it's not true, but he doesn't apply it, and he doesn't seem to understand the application of it. Another big thing, he said you need to mix heavy and light weights. And he talked about 5x5. My original program was a 5x5. My newer one's a 3x5. You know what people get? Jacked on it. And he admitted that, well, 5x5 plans People can get big and strong, but you need the smaller movements. You telling me novices need smaller movements? No, they don't. And they sure don't need, because actually that was two of his tips. You need isolation movements and compounds. And he also said you need to do heavy and lightweight. No, not really. Not really. Not for novice lifters. Do you know what happens when you start mixing rep ranges? We're getting into periodization at that point. If you start trying to mix rep ranges instead of just get stronger as a novice, what do you think happens? You make less gains. I'm not saying you can't add a little bit of accessory work. I have even a little bit in the free program I put out. It's there. There's some lightweight stuff, but it is a minor part of the program, and it's only for a couple of muscles. All right? Only for a couple of muscles. Everything else is fives. And it's mostly oriented and centered around your big movements. But no, novice lifters do not need to be mixing heavy and light work on their big lifts. No, they need to get strong. Your first year in the gym needs to be dedicated purely to getting decently strong at all the big lifts. And what he also threw me off again, you could tell he comes from a goofy-ass bodybuilding background. He's talking about a 5x5 being heavy. That's hypertrophy work. Even by the classic definitions, when people believed in hypertrophy training versus strength training, the experts currently don't believe in that, by the way. I don't really believe in that. You can't separate size and strength. 5x5 generally fell into the intensity ranges that were considered to be the heavier end of hypertrophy training. So he doesn't even seem to know what the classical rep ranges were that have been abandoned at this point, to where he got this whole idea from. He doesn't even know the ranges. 5x5 is usually done with a 7 to 8 rep max. You can't do a 5x5 with your 5 rep max. If you can only lift a weight for 5 reps, if 300 pounds is your absolute all-out 5 rep max, you can't do multiple sets of 5 with it. You sure as hell can't do 5x5 with it. So again, he's lost the plot. He doesn't understand intensities or anything else. But I digress. No, you need to be working medium rep ranges like that. I don't think novice lifters should really go out of the 5 to 8 rep range. I really don't. I don't think there's any point in it. I don't think there's any benefit. They can make most of their gains for the longest time possible. You don't need to mix rep ranges. Fine, you want to do some high rep, real light stuff for your rear delts and abs and things, I'm cool with that. In fact, I recommend that sort of thing. Not a problem. But not for your major muscle groups. No, you need to do your big lifts. You need to work on progressive overload as a novice. Same thing, he kind of comes in and says, oh, you need isolation. I hate that word, because there is no such thing as an isolation movement. Again, goofy ass bodybuilder term. Has no meaning. All right, you cannot isolate a muscle. I think what he meant to say was multi-joint and single-joint exercises, because compound and isolation is bodybuilder terminology, and it's not real. It's make-believe. If you use the actual definition of the words that they give, all exercises are compound movements. There is no such thing as an isolation movement, because you can't isolate muscles. You cannot isolate your bicep. You can't do it. Laws of biology prevent it. So, back to the point, though. I hate that term, but no, they don't need smaller movements. Novice lifters, as far as I've seen, there hasn't been one study that I'm aware of that has ever concluded that novice lifters on a structured program gain more muscle by adding single joint exercises to their big movements. In other words, studies have found that pulling exercises for your back cause just as much bicep growth as curls do. And adding curls doesn't actually make your biceps grow faster if the volume is sufficient on the pulling. Same thing with pressing. Bench press actually gives you maximum tricep development. As a novice lifter, your pressing exercises will actually grow your triceps as big as they're going to get as a novice lifter. In studies that looked at where they added tricep extensions to the bench press, novices didn't gain any extra tricep size. None. So the point I would make, he's talking about novice lifters, which is what his audience is. No advanced lifter is going to follow him. Not one. No advanced lifter is going to follow this clown. It's just complete gym noobs. That's your audience. There is no evidence to support your presupposition that you need to be doing both. There is no evidence to support it. All the evidence is to the contrary. Get strong on the big lifts. And I'm not saying if you novices don't want to throw in a few curls, because I programmed curls into that novice program because I know you guys are going to do them anyway, so I might as well program them so that you don't mess up the workload. I programmed them in. You guys are going to do them anyway, so I might as well program them. But you guys don't need these single joint exercises as novice lifters. You really don't. You really don't. They're not going to help you. Get reasonably strong on your big exercises. Build a base. build a base and the rest will sort itself out. When you start developing weak points down the road, 9 months, 10 months, a year later, then you can start addressing these things. But you just need to build a base. You don't need mixed rep ranges. Don't need smaller movements for the most part. You don't need these things, guys. Again, but what do we expect from V-Shrunk? All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.